Hey YouTube, Mochismo Eugene. I'm just talking to you today about dating sites. I'm sure you've heard a lot of us on here say that the dating sites are no good. You're not going to find love on here. You're not going to find something of substance, depth, nothing real as far as love goes. Um, there is an exception to this rule. There are a few people, probably, don't know of any, that have probably found and met and matched with someone of decent caliber. And for that, I'm happy for that kind of situation. But the short of it is that is it's a cesspool of narcissists. That's where they lurk. That's where they do a lot of their fishing. I'm subscribed to one in particular now, and I know you just heard me said, get off of them. Don't go there looking for love, this and that. I'm on the one for a specific reason, which is of my own personal preference, and I'll talk about that in the future, hopefully. But if you're healing and you need some clarity for your life and you're trying to work on yourself to become a whole person after a result of narcissist abuse, you don't need to go lurking for another nightmare. So Facebook is kind of like, to me, I think is a waste of time, and for that I haven't been on it for years. If you consider glancing in from time to time, and when there's a police Facebook story, I've gone in there occasionally when I couldn't find information anywhere else, or they led me there to go on their Facebook to see what was happening in the community. Not downplaying my use of it. What I am saying for me, and I'm speaking to me, I don't have an issue with it as opposed to when I was spending 2 hours just strolling on the site maybe 3-4 years ago. And one day I just said, man, I was supposed to have been gone to do XYZ, and I've been on this thing for 2 hours, and it didn't even seem like 2 hours. So a lot of people say, well, I'm on there for my business, I'm on there for this, I'm on there for that. Okay, to each his own. If you feel safe enough to be on these sites and they're not conflicting with your lifestyle, your sanity, your mental stability, then so be it. But if at all this is conflicting with your lifestyle, it's causing you a lot of unnecessary added issues, probably shouldn't be on it. But my bigger point is, this video going to be entailing, the dating sites and mental health. And I'm going to show you 2 mental health illnesses in which a narcissist will use specifically to garner attention, sympathy, victimhood. Now, anybody who's dealing with these mental health illnesses in which I'm going to describe, don't feel offended, don't take it personal, don't absorb it upon yourself as an attack. Because anyone who truly has a mental health illness, specifically in regards of these 2 that I'm going to talk about, I empathize, and I pray God's covering over you, that you are healed in your mind, your body, and your spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. So what I'm going to talk about is the dating site. And very briefly, I'm going to play a skit. Meet a narcissist on the dating site. You don't know they're a narcissist. I'm going to show you a number 1 key way to know that you're possibly involving yourself with a narcissist. You meet them on a dating site. You begin to exchange conversation. You're feeling the vibe. You actually both agree for a meet and greet, either for coffee, lunch, or dinner. You meet each other. You sat down. Get your drinks. Get your food. They begin to ask you a slew of questions. They sound like an interview. It sounds like an interrogation between those 2. Now that you're awake, the red flags go right up. Before you were awake, you would answer more questions than they would ask you. You would give a whole bunch of information. Now you're awake. This is the scenario now. You're awake. Having this conversation. All of a sudden, they begin to ask you a slew of questions. And a couple of questions in specific they ask you. Where are you from? What do you do for a living? How many family members you have? Do they live close by? How close are you with your family? How close are you with your friends? Now, they're asking you these questions like boom, 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 boom. And as you begin to share maybe a little bit of yourself, be it your family tree, they hijack the conversation, and it goes from you talking about your sister. They're like, oh yeah, I got one sister, and my mom raised us, and she was abusive, and because of that, I got anxieties and depression. These are the two most favorite excuses they like to use for victimhood, to which they don't have either or, by the way. They take authentic mental health illnesses and they distort them and they hijack them for themselves. Because in the light of suicides and a high rate of people who are trying to hurt themselves in our society, they're encouraged to talk about these two, depression and anxieties. So narcissists are shame-based. So this being warranted and talked about more and more in our society to bring awareness so people don't have to feel ashamed. The narcissist has schemed in their mind, okay, I ain't got to feel shame. So they have ascribed these two mental health illness, one if not both of them, to their own arsenal of tricks. So take that meet and greet as we were talking about. They begin to talk about this, and then they switch it back to, oh, well, I don't want to talk about that. Just tell me about yourself. I don't want to talk about it anymore. That was way, way back, many years ago. That's my past. What you're supposed to do at that moment is say, no, go ahead and talk about it. I know you need to talk about it. Empathize with them in a genuine way. They don't know that you're trying to allow them the stage to hang themselves. So that being said, this is the number one way to know that you're possibly involving yourself with a narcissist, because they will hijack these two specific mental health illnesses and ascribe them to themselves to garner sympathy, attention, and victimhood. And so once you sense that you could possibly be involving yourself with a narcissist, you let everything play itself out. That is a sign that you should heighten your awareness. If you decide you want to stay into this involvement a little longer, just to see if a couple of more of these cues weigh themselves out, that'll be your right. But in how they talk about these mental health illnesses will be telltale that they are truly not dealing with anxieties or depression. They're in fact covert narcissists. And you'll know this as time goes on, because in my experience, and based on some studying, study what anxiety and depression is. Most people with depression and anxieties, they are not toxic. They don't want to cause problems for anyone. They do have a fear of the unknown, different things like that, but they don't tend to gaslight you, triangulate you. They're not deliberate liars, cheaters. Most of them I've known are faithful women, pretty devoted. So it's totally unrelated to the narcissist, because they are whoremongers. Like someone said, Tia on MPD, she said they're not bisexual, they're trisexual, they'll try anything. And so once you realize, or you got a good indication that they could be possibly a narcissist, you allow this thing to weigh itself out, because in no time flat, they will show you some other sign that will connect the dots for you. Now at this point, you decide whether you need to haul ass or you want to continue to stay in there. Because what you do once they start this conversation of mental health illnesses, one thing you do, you guard your heart at that point. Because you can have empathy for somebody, but what they're trying to do is draw you into a sympathy, almost like fishing for fish, What you do when you fish, when you feel a tug on your line, you don't right way jerk on it. Any avid fisherman would tell you, who's good at it, when you feel a tug, you don't yank the line. You allow the fish to hook himself by way of running away and pulling and pulling and pulling. Now that's an analogy, may not have a stark parallel, but you get the point. A narcissist will just let you go and go and go in with your conversation sharing of your private and personal information, and all they're doing is storing it right here until the moment they get ready to yank it. Now they've secured you. So don't fall prey to the mental health illnesses in which they try to ascribe to themselves by way of depression and anxieties, specifically. Now again, before I leave, all who are really suffering from these mental health illnesses, go to betterhelp.com. I'm not endorsing it. They didn't pay me to promote it. You can go online. It's called betterhelp.com. It was recommended in one of the first videos I saw. I think Dr. Carmen Bryant, she's a sweetheart. She's always talking about that and plugging BetterHelp in for anyone and everyone who don't know about it. I went and I did some counseling via Zoom to the point where the counselor didn't feel like there was much needed counseling that I continually had to have pertaining to what I had went through. I was affected to some degree, but not in a way where she felt like I needed intensive therapy. And that was a good thing. I think 9 months I was married to the girl, and I'm still married to her, and she bounced because I got the knowledge. Not only the knowledge, I got the specifics of what she was and what she had. And that was a story in and of itself too, and I've told that in part on other videos. So again, before I leave, just know, just know that you have to watch for these two things that they say. And that doesn't mean everyone who says this are a narcissist. Matter of fact, there are more people that probably deal with anxieties and depression that are not narcissists. But in how they talk about these mental health illnesses, they're not authentic, and there will be some signs down the line. And with the monster I married, she actually had the medications in which they were around, and after she left, I screenshot one of them, and I Googled what it was used for, and it did deal with anxieties and depressions. But what a narcissist does, if they are taking medications for depression and anxiety, they're taking these to sedate themselves so they can sleep at night, because you gotta understand that a narcissist is constantly being bombarded with voices. And so they think in taking this medication is just gonna help ease the thought process, ease the monsters and the demons in which are wrestling with them. And so it's to no avail for them. There's no therapy for a narcissist. There's therapy for a person with anxieties and depression. Now, are there narcissists in therapy? Yeah. There are a couple springing up on YouTube. And that's a story in and of itself. They say they're in therapy, but just having a YouTube channel, it garners a certain amount of attention. Even healthy people don't mind attention, but it's a difference in a narcissist. They need it like the average human being needs water to hydrate. And without it, they get sick. They could go into a deep, deep depression. They can go into a deep, deep isolation if they don't have the company of their peers. People. Take prisoners, guys that get locked up in prison. A lot of times you'll see them do a lot of psychotic stuff because they would rather get committed to the isolation box to get the attention, but once they committed to the isolation box, they find out that they don't want to be there. But that's a story in and of itself. My point well taken, well made. I hope you understand. These are two signs you have to look for. That being said, blessed.